in November of 2011, and we were just getting ready to just break out in a special way in our church in Dar es Salaam. And we had humongous attacks of the enemy. And at this point, let me say this. When we went to Tanzania, December 31st in 1997, the Lord woke me up at 5:30 in the morning and he said, if you do not learn to pray, the devil will kill your family in this nation. And I kind of went, well, Lord, teach me to pray. Teach me to pray. I was terrified of that. And what he told me was this nation, Tanzania, looks calmer on the outside, but it's actually more deadly than the other two nations that you worked in. And in Zaire, hey, they had shooting in the streets all the time. You just didn't walk out the door without making sure you heard from God. Rwanda, they turn off the lights, shoot your neighbors, and turn on the lights. I mean, there was death everywhere. We were coming home from church, and the back of the Bucky in front of us would fly up, and there'd be charred bodies inside. It was like death was everywhere there. But Tanzania was different. Tanzania was known as the peaceful country. But with the Islamic influence in that nation, it made it very volatile, I should say. And then, so in 2001, November, the night before what we would celebrate our Thanksgiving, Wednesday night, we were having a cell group. And every time the Lord has spoken to me, it's generally been when I was in an attitude or a moment of prayer. We were worshiping God, and I was leading the group. We were worshiping, singing, and praying, and all of a sudden the Holy Spirit spoke to me. And he said, Pastor Dan is in danger of death. So I stopped everybody. I said, I just heard the word from the Lord who said, Pastor Dan is in danger of death. We've got to pray for him right now. So we prayed for him. He was on another side of the city doing another meeting somewhere else. And so we stopped and we prayed. And then I came home. Now I was going to have 11 people at my house the next day. But what I should have done, and learn from my mistake, what I should have done was stop everything, get in on my knees, and pray until my husband made it home safely, which I did not do. I just continued to pray in tongues, and I'm preparing the turkey. I received a phone call from one of the men who was a Christian in our church, and he said, Mama, is Pastor Dan home? I have this, I've got to talk to him. He had also a warning of prayer for him. I said, no, he's not home. And I just called him, and he was like, woman, why are you interrupting me? I'm in the middle of giving the word. I'm like, sorry. He told me later, why didn't you tell me that you had a warning? I would have been more careful. But anyways, I just got off the phone, and I should have just got on my knees and prayed, but I didn't. I was washing the turkey. I'm thinking of the people coming the next day. And at 11:15, I get a telephone call, come to the hospital. And I kept asking them, is he still alive? Is he still alive? They wouldn't tell me. They wouldn't tell me what had happened. But he had gotten out of the car and taken one step into the road. And see, at 11:15, and in Tanzania, oftentimes they don't turn their lights on. And two buses were come racing down the road to try to beat each one to the bus stop. And he had a fraction of a second to take his Bible bag, cover his chest, and he was hit like this. He was thrown 30 meters from the petrol station to the Lutheran church. And this is at Magomeni. There's a mosque here, the Baptist over here. And he's thrown. He says, I can still remember the face of the bus driver when I was smashed against the front windshield. And he thought, well, I'm going home to see Jesus. I mean, this is it. I'm dead. Because you don't get hit by a bus and survive. But thank God that at least the prayer that we put in spared his life. And his bone was sticking out of his leg through his pants. He's laying on the ground out there. All the thieves, it's a terrible area for thieves. The thieves came and they're trying to steal his phone. They're trying to steal his watch. They're ripping stuff off of him. The Indians who had been carrying him in their car tried to pick him up and put him in the car. The local people are trying to drag him back out because they hadn't finished stealing from him yet. They rushed him to the hospital, and they called me, and I came. And I began to walk the hospitals and ask the Lord, Lord, put us on the heart of your intercessors. put us on the heart of your intercessors. I mean, it's 11, 12 o'clock at night. We have nowhere to take him. None of the hospitals would take him. I didn't know what to do or where to go. And so my prayer was, put us on the heart of your intercessors. And I'm praying this. The Lord opened up a hospital at 5 in the morning to take him in. The young man who had called me, Dr. Sam, he was an intern for the Muhimbili medical program at that time, and the first Christian in our church, in Shining Light Church in Dar es Salaam. He said, Mama, you go home and sleep. I'll go in with Pastor. I'll be with him the whole time. So he had just was in the middle of a surgery rotation, so he could dress up and go in, thank the Lord, and he was with him. And he came through fine. In 4 days, it was miraculous. The doctor said he can leave. Dan said, I want to leave. And the doctor said, yeah, that kind of spiral break that you had, no way. You've got a plate with 6 screws in your leg. There's no way you're going to be able to come out. And he said, can you move your foot? And Dan lifted up his foot and he said, like this? And he moved it around. The doctor said, what? Do that again. And he said, like this? The doctor said, take him to x-ray. And they x-rayed him and they said, no, it's perfect, you can go. That was in 3 days. Wow. It was miraculous, really. The doctor said, see the guy next to you over there? He's been here a month and a half, and the bus just ran over his toes, you know. So this is a miracle. But this is the thing that got to me about it. A year and a half later, a little Indian lady comes to me, and she said, I've waited over a year to meet you. And that was the most unusual greeting I'd ever heard. And I said, what do you mean? She said, let me tell you my story. I was a Hindu all my life. And last year and a half ago, I got saved. And I got spirit-filled. And one night in November, I began and crying and praying in tongues. And I don't know what this was about. She said, I was a Hindu all my life. I've never had anything like this before. I was only just freshly spirit-filled, so I didn't know what this was. But I'm crying, I'm weeping, I'm groaning, I'm bent over. And then I had a vision. And what I saw was Jesus walking down Muhimbili corridor. And he walked into the first room. He went to the second bed. He pulled back the sheets on this man's leg, and he put his hands on this man's leg and he put it back perfectly. And the vision finished. And I thought, what was that? But obviously this is what I'm praying about. And now see, I've asked the Lord to put us on the heart of his intercessors. And she became a brand new intercessor she didn't even know. Anyways. The amazing thing was, Dan was in the first room and in the second bed, and she had no way of knowing that. But the very next day, she held this experience in her heart. She heard her pastor talking about, did you hear Pastor Dan was hit by a bus, and he's in Muhimbili Hospital, and she said, that's the man that I was praying for. I'm sure that's who it was. And so she came a year and a half later to meet us. But see, God's working behind the scenes. This is what it taught me. God was working behind the scenes, even when I'm going through a living hell myself at that time. I cried out to him, and he heard my prayers, and he was actually doing it, even when I didn't know and I didn't see it. Yep. He's so good, and he's so faithful. Yeah.